As you've probably seen by now if you exist on the internet, YouTubers flock towards breaking hot news the hour it comes out, if not for the views, then for the glory of being first.
Dream was caught up in some very serious grooming allegations that I feel were swept under the rug and purposely forgotten about.
Apparently, Slazo, the person who I'd met at I-64, was going to be exposed as a predator.
I acted too quickly and made a video that was a little too favorable of Orion's story for my liking.
Whether or not you are an avid viewer of these channels, they continue to garner millions of views and spread niche drama to a wider audience within only a couple hours. Some stories are absolutely worth breaking, as they deal with immensely heavy accusations with proof of offense, but sometimes the reporting falls into a dangerously deceptive territory. The issue with this trend lies within the creators and what form of quasi-journalism they offer out as content. Those that feature biased opinions or only one side of the story without proper research are usually considered drama channels that one should take with a grain of salt. But more and more creators are trying to label themselves as news channels, a one-stop shop for mindless consumption while stories are still developing. While this is an ongoing issue within the YouTube community as a whole with seemingly no solution, let's zoom way into ours, the Vtuber community. Our Vtuber news channel scummy for the reasons mentioned above? Well, it's a two-way street, a yes and a no. But I'll spare you the long-winded meandering around it and just come out and say it. No, I don't think Vtuber news as we have it is the worst thing to grace this platform. In fact, there are a lot of benefits to it. But that doesn't mean it's absolved of the previous issue that their content largely parades mistakes and hate around for clicks and views. Hey now! Don't be so hasty to click off this video because what I just said sounds like the most nothing burger take you've ever heard. There's clear pros and cons to the news genre, and I'll be explaining it from the point of view of a creator. News is and always will be an immensely important part of society, whether it's to celebrate marginalized communities' W's or to discuss the capitalistic undercurrents of the world we live in. Within the Vtuber community in specific, where the indie scene is more expansive than every agency combined, where laws and regulations have yet to protect and prosecute creators in all the facets we are beginning to see emerge, we can only rely on ourselves to spread awareness of situations that come to light. In all honesty, how many of you would have been aware of the insane things Walker has done to their company talents if not for False or Khyo reporting on it consistently? I'll be 100, I never would have found out otherwise. Before I began my journey as a VTuber, I had known next to nothing about the happenings of the indie circle, much less the tiny Nugu agencies. That's right, I snuck in a K-pop term. Even with something as big and shocking as that, it would have flown under the radar in most of the community, or the scale would be largely misunderstood due to many of the talents of Walker releasing Spanish or Japanese statements rather than English. Beyond just controversies though, news channels have taken to promoting fellow VTuber debuts, free asset creations, and celebrations as a way of putting more eyes on smaller creators, many of whom aren't lucky enough to grace everyone's Twitter timeline through the algorithm alone. In truth, nothing lasts on the internet for more than a few hours these days. We are an ever-changing, ever-growing, ever-fucking-up big-time niche to the point where the start of the year feels like a century ago by the time we get to December. In such a case, it is highly necessary to have documentation of it all. We need unbiased records of how the world was a month, 6 months, 2 years ago, so we can fully understand the growth of technology and the social climate.
Once again, Niji Sanji is I wouldn't say competitor so much, it's just simply another large quote-unquote corporate group for VTubers. We'll see what comes out of that, hopefully soon.
I've mentioned False ID and Khyo earlier. To my knowledge, they are the top news outlets for the VTuber circle, and have proven to hold documentation of major stories that corporations would risk their public reputation to erase. Ahem! What they're doing is vital. And while I can't say I vouch for a lot of Khyo's heavily biased videos, he is still showing screenshots and relevant information where it counts. We've all heard that history is written by the victors. This is also known as censorship. With the vast power disparity between the laymen, indie creators, and corporations, that erasure of community-reported issues could prove to be a game-changer in how the VTuber sphere will operate in the future. Also, the VTuber community grows and loses fans all the time. Seemingly with every new wave debut or audition opening, the amount of new eyes increases or at least becomes more prominent. Those people will be naive, unknowing of the sketchy things agencies have done in the past, and without having long-lasting videos that compile the facts and reactions from all sides, they would remain none the wiser.
I just want to say, this is like, I wanted to address this on my own accord.
I don't know if I can say that I'm in the state to wish her good luck on her future ahead.
個々の新しい道が明るくて幸せがたくさん満ちたものとなりますように。
Even if you've been in the community for a while, for example, me, I've been here since 2020, some very significant pieces of drama have flown over my head, and yet the community continues to reference those stories in cryptic ways. One I've heard recently is that male VTubers have a bad reputation due to previous outliers that had been proven to be predatory and just bad people.
Shinji had found that Migi had been involved with at least 8 other women, banning 5 people on her Discord due to sexual misconduct, sometimes toward minors.
All I had to do to find out about that situation from a year ago was to look up False's video on it, and boom! Tons of sources and reactions from the moment were there for me to base my own judgment of the situation on. If I wanted to research more, I could directly type the tweet into Twitter to look up the original post, or if the original tweet was deleted, I'd then be able to continue on to other websites to find more details using keyword searches. Overall, it's a very useful source for at least discovering that situations exist, and even easier to throw the link out when someone makes naive yet inflammatory takes thereafter. But now that we know this, why are so many corporate VTubers upset and annoyed at VTuber news channels? Well, as I mentioned before, when there's nothing of note to talk about, news channels tend to devolve into drama channels. Reporting on Twitter drama is easy and many people like following trending stories. Corpo VTubers have been hit the hardest with these videos, where any small mistake or misspoken word on stream could be wrapped up in controversy and stain their reputation. One that I can remember particularly clearly is when Vox began heavily pandering to the gachikois before making a strongly worded tweet denouncing the parasociality of his fanbase when they started harassing Reimu for interrupting a stream. And I know I don't want to bring this issue back up either, but paraphrasing, Twitter had a field day with smearing his name with hypocrisy, and to this day, he hasn't been able to live it down given his continuous boyfriend experience content. I simply believe he makes harmless content like the ever-popular Drama City in Japan, but due to the live and close content interaction format of VTubing, the issue with gachikois is dramatically increased. What could usually be chalked up to Twitter being Twitter was extended to an infinitely wider audience on YouTube, forever immortalized. And while people in the spotlight deserve to receive criticism if it's warranted, how long must it affect their careers if the transgression is on the lower scale? To a creator, this can be devastating at worst and annoying at the very least. There will always be people who enter their chats or comments and throw shade regarding that mistake months after the fact, and just looking at any comment section under the videos that reported on the drama reveals the one-sided hatred towards the talent under fire. It's not a good thing to perpetuate, especially since there's no guarantee that the news channel will update the situation after the talent has apologized or does something to change their actions, and even if they do, there's no guarantee the people who saw the first video will see the next one. Keeping documentation is important, and VTubers who have controversies reported on will always dislike news channels. These are two facts that will never cease to coexist. This divide is also seen in just regular viewers commenting black and white takes either in clear opposition or support of Niji striking False and Khyo's channels. You can't satisfy everyone, especially if people don't care or don't want to know about the various issues in their beloved safe haven from the real world. And I think that is the main difference in interest within the community. Some people see this exclusively as entertainment, like watching a good movie. Seeing a channel dedicated to dissecting the movie like Cinema Sins will cause you to feel protective over it. To others like myself, or creators who want to make VTubing a full-time career, knowing the ins and outs of the industry and how fans react is very valuable information to absorb, not only for selecting agencies to apply for, but also for learning how to handle drama when it comes knocking on your door. It's never a good thing when the news gives blatant opinions or biases because it sways their audience into believing that stance over analyzing all the facts themselves, because it's so much easier to not think for yourself. If you would tread carefully with mainstream news channels, please do the same to vet your VTuber news sources. With that said, news channels or Twitter accounts reporting on VTubers will not simply disappear because you wish them so. They aren't perfect, but they aren't the devils incarnate either, and you are free to block and avoid watching their content if you feel strongly about them. I personally stand with them because I believe we need this documentation as a relatively new genre of content creation where bad actors run rampant. Where this goes in the future is unknown, but as long as they don't become Death Noodles Part 2 or Leafy Revenge of the Sith, then I lack a reason to raise some pitchforks.